It creates a much stronger social network for males, not only for women. You have a lawyer perspective, so you know many details, or much in detail. Yeah, many, yeah. I have a lawyer's perspective, uh, precisely. Um, Indeed, indeed. I know it's would potentially be considered horrific socially, but at least I gave you logical reasons. I gave you logical reasons. I read the case, and then and Roe confessed at her deathbed, on her deathbed, sorry, that she invented the details. So I cannot metaphysically call that fair if it was a lie. But you can at least see that I have logical arguments. Praise Lumen. Well, I'm grateful that at least you don't hate me for just saying it. At this point, I am thankful for that. At least at this point, I'm thankful for that. And it's precisely related to what I was mentioning. It is true. I don't know if you have ever been in contact with Italians or non-progressive Spaniards, and here it's pretty much both of them exponentially multiplied. The core of having the family as the core of society is totally different. For example, from my perspective, for a woman to become a mother, it's not slavery as they are trying to sell nowadays. It's not slavery. It's the highest honor possible. We all come from a mother. Mothers have created the amazing societies that we have had all across Europe, regardless of the location. And I think that attacking the figure of the mother psychologically psychologically attack the population, telling them that our ancestors, our predecessors, that our mothers were slaves just because, I don't know, they cooked. I think it's absolutely illogical. It's absolutely illogical, because I think there's no higher honor at all. They were amazing beings, all of our mothers and parents and grandparents. I also, for example, here I also grew up with my grandmother and my grandparent. There you can see the strong core concept of Italian family that replicates the original idea of the Roman Empire. And I have made comparisons, and so far, I please understand that at least I see that the social network for male individuals, it's a stronger, and that has a lot of, I think, positive consequences. It's not just that the strong social network is for women, but also for males. And when the social network is stronger for males, your society is much more effective at combating, at fighting loneliness, and that has a lot of positive consequences long term. For example, it the individual has many more instruments to fight loneliness. That's why suicide rates in Roman Catholic countries are generally, and that's a positive thing, they're generally lower. Because loneliness has been partially, you can never do it fully, partially addressed by not straying away from the classic Roman tradition. And I think that's something positive. I think that's something positive that Protestantism didn't adapt correctly. That would be a personal criticism, for example, from Roman Catholicism. And if you think about it, who are you bringing to us? A human? There are enough foreigners in the other. A human are trying to form. We're precisely. We're the fact that you a shaman that maybe must go with the shaman and protect her.
Never had any doubts.
For example, and I think that it's not fair to call that slavery just because a woman tends to her children and has a biological role. in which she nurtures her children and wants to aspire to have a family. Uh, I think it's hardly fair to call that slavery, as nowadays we see so much. I think it's absolutely unfair, and and it goes against common sense, because at the end of the day, just like in the old Roman Empire, the purpose of the human species, one of the great purposes, is the reproduction of our species, because otherwise it becomes quite sad. It becomes quite sad that we cannot, as a species, we cannot reproduce. You can see that there's a correlation between everything that I say. Um, we don't base our philosophy on psychology. We base it on biology and genetics. That's a huge difference that I think the Roman Empire got right, uh, pretty good. That the philosophy is based more on biology as the framework, rather than psychology, rather than sociology, rather than social sciences. It's based on biological sciences, and that has all of those consequences. So yeah, if you want to see a modern day Roman, you have to go to Italy or here, and you'll see all of these interesting things. I know it's quite different than the current stance that we have nowadays. But as I've said, I think it's quite effective at 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 fighting loneliness, suicide rates, and creating a stronger social network. And it has positive aspects, just as it has negatives. But I think that a strong social network, in terms of the core unit of society as a family, I see it unfair that it is destroyed nowadays. I think it had a negative impact on society. I think it did have. It's just that they are invisible statistics. For example, a lot of invisible statistics. For example, a lot of people don't care about suicide rates, as I said, about loneliness. It's a huge thing, and those things are partially addressed were partially addressed in the Roman system. It's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same. We have the core unit of the family, just like in ancient Rome. Of course, there's different influences. There's a lot of modern influences. If you see a lot of people here, a lot of a huge portion of the population doesn't adhere to these things, but it's less than 50, I would say. I would say there's still a predominance of this Roman inherited legacy. Pretty much in ancient Rome, it was like that. There was the paterfamilias, the oldest male in the family. The oldest male in the family would be the paterfamilias, and he would have the and a lot of people, when I talk about the Roman Empire, for example, they think that it was all savages, they were all savages and etc. And we all have genetics from the Roman Empire. At the end of the day, we are all descendants from them, from our distant Italian ancestors. 98% of the cases, when people do it, they realize that we all come from the Roman Empire. The paterfamilias was the oldest male, and it's true that we progressed a lot, and I fully agree with this. Please don't think I'm crazy. Back then, there were a lot of cases that there was a distinction between object and human that nowadays is unacceptable, and I think it's perfectly unacceptable. But in terms of the culture, of the Roman Empire, if we take a look at it, for example, the fact that little children weren't forced to attend to funerals because it was seen as unhuman. If you think about it, that's extremely advanced for that period of time, because they thought that death was kind of like a taint to the human to human nature, and children wouldn't need to be in contact. At the fact that nowadays, I don't know how typical it is in your country for children to not attend to funerals. That, for example, it's a huge step up from barbaric tribes just killing each other. Roman Empire was interesting times. Yeah, definitely. I think it was. Well, what could I tell you? I had to study all of Roman tradition and laws because precisely I was going to comment this to you. The judicial system. There's a huge difference between the judicial system in Southern Europe and Northern Europe. I don't know. In the case of Poland, I've never seen it, but I deduce it would inherit the hybrid system of the Prussian Empire when you were kind of like all together with Germany, with the Prussian Empire inside of the Prussian Empire. It would inherit the hybrid system, but in Southern Europe, the Roman system is called continental law system, as opposed to the common law that we see in movies nowadays, the system that was created after Protestantism was already up and running and expanding throughout the UK and the US, the common law system. We also have it in Australia, for example, or New Zealand. I have a follower from New Zealand, Lorne Moll. He was one of my first followers, and I commented this to him some 2 years ago. The judicial system is called continental law system here in Italy, and it's based on written law rather than jurisprudence, rather than looking at what the judge decided, looking at what the jury decided in the previous case with similar features. That's the common law system that we stumble upon in the UK or the US. And it's interesting how in Argentina, the continental system of the Roman Empire made its way all the way over here, kind of like it's the other side of the mirror of the US, like the other side, the other face of the same coin. And we have the continental law system. It's all written laws. We don't have a jury. We have a judge, the figure of the judge, who decides. A professional lawyer who trains to become a judge. And he decides. There's no jury. And it's quite amazing and interesting, right? Because in the case of Germany is a unique case in terms of judicial systems. And by extension, I think the system of the Prussian Empire was the same hybrid system. So it affected all of the regions over there. So it's a hybrid system that combines our continental original Roman system from Italy, and you get some elements from the Protestant reform of the UK and northwestern Europe. Quite amazing system that you have. It's a hybrid combination. Or maybe you inherited the full Roman Empire, but I don't think so. I think it must be hybrid. But the Roman Empire, definitely interesting. If you like, I can talk about it. But there were a lot of advances. For example, what I said, not allowing children to attend to funerals. If you think about it, it's a huge step up. Or for example, the fact that they would brush their teeth. A lot of people think that they wouldn't brush their teeth. These amazing details. They didn't have toothpaste, but they used mint. And if you think about it, compared to what was outside of the Roman Empire, it's a huge step up, because otherwise they wouldn't have orthodontics at all, because at that point it was orthodontics, having some replacement for toothpaste. And if you think about it, using mint, even if it's precarious by today's standards, it was a huge step up from having a wisdom tooth or any teeth getting infected and killing the soldier, or the civilian. It's a huge step up. Or for example, have you noticed the plumes, the feathers? Sorry, the feathers over at the on the helmet, the famous feathers. Well, they served the purpose. They were used to identify your the commander of your unit in the battlefield, on the battlefield, sorry, in the middle of a fight, in the middle of a huge battle, you could identify your commander, for example. And if you think about it psychologically, it's a huge difference between being in the middle of a mob, everyone killing each other, and not knowing where to go, and having that reference from an experienced soldier. And there are more cases. For example, they use some small dots. They use some small dots in their feet, in their sandals, that when in contact with one of the greatest creations of the Roman Empire, which were cement roads. Well, not cement, they used the bricks and they used a replacement for cement. But it was pretty much the same idea, a glue that would unite the bricks, that would join them together. When that came into contact with when those dots came into contact with the bricks, they would create a sound effect that would trick barbaric tribes into thinking that, for example, there was a bigger army than what it originally was, and create, for example, disorder in their lines, for example. Just in case you're interested, when I say that I'm Lombard, that implies that Lombard is the northernmost section of Italy. It's right below that cone that Switzerland has. It's the second town. So pretty much my ancestors are from there, and my great grandpa, 4th generation, and pretty much Lombardy, in case you're interested, it was a Germanic tribe for a lot of time. Then it incorporated into the Roman Empire, like all of us. But those dots on those sandals, at the base of those sandals, would create a sound wave effect that would distort perception of how many soldiers were. See how many interesting things we have, and among them, the creation of the judicial system and the paterfamilias was. It's over there. Damn it! What I mean. I'm so interested in our chat that I get distracted from the analysis. That is much more important and amazing, and great. Talking about these topics, because you don't find. I think this must be the only stream ever that will talk about these topics. Sorry people. Depressing thought moment. It'll probably be the only one ever. But yeah. The creation of the paterfamilias and how Roman law treated the family as the core unit of society. I think it had a lot of positive. It had amazing positive effects on society that we don't appreciate them at all nowadays. But here and in Italy, we do appreciate, and in Spain, we appreciate it. Definitely, we are the 3 countries that mostly inherited that. Also Portugal, also Ireland, and Poland has a huge Roman Catholic inherited tradition. I bet you must see it every day. It's one of the countries that mostly inherited Roman Catholic traditions from the Roman Empire, and mixed with the Viking influence as well. So it's amazing that we have such rich history in common, all Europeans, pretty much regardless where we are in the world. Yes, that's it. I marked no amount, so women can chop it later. I'm really on the gold. Let's go back to slaying Athena. Perfect. It's something that is not appreciated nowadays. So, well, in the Roman Empire, there were a lot of amazing things. For example, it's crazy to think that in Europe, where you are and where Italy is and everyone, that they're... Sorry, I have to go. It's late for me. Good chat and thanks. Amazing man. No worries at all. Thanks for enjoying my analysis, and thanks for every second that you spend watching the stream, and thank you for dropping to chat about all of these amazing topics. Thank you, Ike, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for joining the Discord, and thanks for chatting with me today. Deeply appreciate it. Deeply appreciate your company. Have a great night over there, and see you around, man. I don't want to prevent you from going. Have a great weekend, and see you on Tuesday eventually, or over at Discord. Anything that you would like to ask me, the same. Have a great weekend. Have a great weekend. Alright, people. Alright. Let's continue then with the analysis after this amazing chat about the Roman Empire and everything that we have had. Let's go back to the analysis. Precisely. Okay, what's going on? The mobs are getting aggressive here. Let's go back to the analysis and topic for today, which is basically the influence of enemy design mechanics on the gameplay mechanics. People. I mentioned on Tuesday that 50% of the gameplay mechanics are, how do I put it? Are the offensive system and the defensive systems that most modern RPGs don't have, and they only have an offensive system in place. After appreciating the fact that Sacred 2 has a defensive system in place, perfectly balanced, we can arrive at the conclusion that the abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics is higher. But what if we take into account the other 50% of gameplay interactions in game? For example, just so you have a reference, we have player attacks, player defenses, but also mob, enemy mechanics variety, and their defenses and attack systems. And it's 50% if you think about it. Player interaction, attack and defense, then broken down into two more. Okay, why is it that? Right. They managed to kill me and force me to activate my doppelganger transfer. Damn it. Medicine against jungle fever. Let's get to it, people. Let's get to it. So it's 50% of the gameplay mechanics that are straight up ignored. In every single modern RPG ever, like ever, we get games in which, how do I put it? The enemy variety, there's a dissociation in the elemental systems, and enemy variety is not taken into account as part of the gameplay mechanics. We just take care of player attacks, player defenses. We don't even have a defensive system in place. And we don't even have to worry about enemy variety at all. And definitely that adds an extra layer of complexity, because now I wanted to comment on how enemy variety and their mechanics influence Sacred 2. First, let's begin with the basics. Straight up. Let's begin with the basics.
I don't have any room left for that. Body or none, you shall suffer.
Damn it, they are dealing high damage here, huh? They have already killed me and dropped my doppelganger twice. They deal fire damage, right? I am right. I have the correct elemental resistance. As I said, the
nature is nothing. I am everything.
That, as I've said, that yeah, I have high resistance. If you pay attention there, the mobs. Let's begin with the down to earth example. We have damn it. No, I ran out of potions. Damn it. Wow. I ran out of potions, people. We are having a negative proportion of... See what I meant last time? This is precisely what I was mentioning. Such an incredible phenomenon.
I am totally overloaded.
What an incredible phenomenon. We are having a negative proportion of the potions, of our income rating. Let me retreat a bit here. Wow. See, this is what I meant. Here you have the perfect example of how it of the influence of the reward punishment system in the economic system of the game. Here you have the perfect example. You say they have been looking for so well. There you have the perfect example. We had a negative proportion. Let me see if I can buy some potions. See, you can see I had 0. I went to 0 due to that negative income. See, it happened even in the endgame gameplay mechanics. That's amazing. Going back to the enemy variety, then we can explore that again later. Basically, I have 10 million, fortunately. Look at that. Health. They were light. That could be the reason. We were using light health potions. Let's try to take them out of the equation. See if that... But anyways, it's a negative proportion, huh? It's a negative ratio in which we have... we are losing money. We are getting less income than the amount of time. We're having a negative income that is causing that negative proportion. That's telling me that we should improve our gear, but I just looted something amazing here. Oof, 62 attack and defense value. Oof. 62 attack and 58, well, that's a nice. Oh, could it be that finally something will replace the Nunk's blade? Could it possibly be? Yeah, it could potentially possibly be. Yeah. Let me see, armor physical. It has 3 slots, definitely. We have some good gear there. Then I'll use it at the end of the stream. We'll take care of that. See that we are having see that we're not having a negative proportion. This one? No, it's not here. Well, looks like we'll have to survive with the potions we have. Let's get to the rest of the northern quests of the place of Dryad Island, people. And going back to the analysis, here I should be able to buy more of those. Yeah. Let's not buy the other ones. I mean, they're better than anything, but if I can farm these ones, they will give me more health, and it will be done, and it won't be as bad as it could potentially be, because I think they don't give me enough health in return for their use, and the direct consequence is that we don't get enough of that, and we can get killed, and then we won't get enough gold. Halt! You are not one of those smugglers. Yours protect Satina. What? I don't know why you attacked me, but
nature is nothing. I am everything.
Why did they attack us? The blood dryads. There we go. It was part of the quest, I guess. Let me see if it updated. Oh, the blood dryads. The blood dryad, there we go. There we go. No, this is not the... right, so we can go through the jungle, I believe, huh? And we have to explore that territory. go. Only one. 28, 27. There. Yeah. It covered more health. So going back to the analysis, people. Going back to the analysis. It's incredible how enemy variety, in this game has a positive impact on the gameplay mechanics, and it's 50% of it. It's basically 50% of it. If you think about it, it's 50% of it. Player attacks, player defenses, and then enemy attacks and defenses. Pretty much. And what do we have on the side of the mobs, regardless of the level, as I mentioned at the beginning of the stream? We have mobs with a cohesive system. Thank you for the medicine. There we go. With a cohesive system that works in tandem with the player-imposed stats and the mob stats in general. I think it's highly positive that there's that correlation between the imposed stats to the player when compared to the imposed stats to mobs. I think it's highly positive. Because that forces the developer to create a much more complex system, in which achieving a balance between stats, it's much more difficult, and that should be addressed and taken into account, because look at that, we finished all of the quests in this area with my amazing no, we have one more. There, we have to get through the forest then. Alright, we'll get through the forest and deal with those. Let me get through the forest through here. And pretty much, let me get through the forest through here. And see if we can get around that structure and over at the coastline. And here we can see here we can see that we can find the path here. It's incredible how the developers of Sacred 2 could manage to create a cohesive elemental system, that works in tandem with this even distribution of stats in the attribute section of the game, that you have to balancely distribute your stats and elemental resistances. It's amazing, because if you think about it, mobs cannot be treated the same way as the player. The player has to be able to farm those mobs, and a direct consequence of that has to be that the player is able to
All Dryads are heretics.
Effectively farm mobs, but to a point in which you don't dissolve the challenge 100%. You don't dissolve the challenge 100%. So it's a much more difficult balance to achieve than to just say, let's use a different stat system for mobs, and world bosses than to the player. I bet you can see my point by now, people. Establishing a correlation between those two different gameplay elements, and keeping a balance, it's much more difficult than just using isolated systems, right? There's an incredibly huge difference if you think about it, treating those two isolated and treating them how do I put it, in tandem, with them working in tandem one and the other. So pretty much. Give me a second because I think the connection dropped a bit there. Wait a second. No. It's working perfectly. It's working perfectly. Working perfectly. There we go. Sorry. I think it's much more difficult to. Oh, thank you, to be alive. They're shooting amazing right away. There we go.
For the gods.
Hey, look at that. We have a lot of people to score now, guys. We have a lot of people to score now. Look at that. So yes, the degree of complexity of creating a system in which mob stats aren't dissociated from player stats. It's a higher degree of complexity. And precisely, I think we should appreciate that much more, because, as I said, the higher complexity of the gameplay system, the more difficult it is to create it at all. Like I said previously, the fact that Sacred 2 has a defensive gameplay system in place, it's absolutely amazing. And it's absolutely amazing. That's it. LOF fun. There we go. Oh well, we'll take care of the humans, but only if you do us a favor. Find the little of the blood dryads and fight her. Hopefully, that should end the siege. Sword of the Blood Dryads. Alright, it's a legendary, people. It's 4 stars. It's probably a word boss.
The Inquisition is
good.
Said to be heartless. I will
good.
Prove to you otherwise.
Good. So we should take care of those two. Let me organize myself. We have to go over there. It's where. No. Look at that. Against the Blood Dryads. The quest ends there because this has to be the world boss. We have to explore this zone as well. So let me get over there. Let me get over there. But you cannot get through the forest, huh? This is not explorable. We have to take, we have two roads. We haven't explored this one. I know this one is shorter, people, but I want to explore all of this zone. And let me get through the road here. And get to that temple. And pretty much, going back to the analysis, enemy variety and enemy mechanics are 50% of the gameplay mechanics, if you think about it. And the fact that we have a correlation between the mob stat system and the player stat system, that they are not dissociated, adds a lot to the overall cohesion, the psychological cohesion of Sacred 2, that the impact that Sacred 2 has on the player. Because you can compare, in Borderlands 2, for example, you have to deduce through the wikia, the elemental damage that is effective, and even so, it's only used offensively, if you think about it. People. Oh shit, they are hitting like the truck here. What level are they? 70? They shouldn't hit that hard, damn it. It's incredible that this game manages to... I think we have the next topic for analysis for next time. The adjustment of endgame difficulty, because the adjustment of the difficulty in this game is absolutely amazing. They're dealing other types of damage. That's the reason. It's not that we say. But that one deals fire. Oh damn it, they are beginning to... This zone is the worst because you have to actively change between elemental resistances. Look at that. Whoa, they're hitting pretty hard. Damn it, pretty hard. Anyways, if I get killed, I don't know if you remember, people, my doppelganger, if I get killed, my soul gets transferred back to the doppelganger. It gets transferred back to the doppelganger, so I actually don't die. I actually go back to the doppelganger's spots. I don't know if the timer resets in that case, but I don't die completely. I don't respawn. My doppelganger is kind of like a vessel of my own life in this game. So, going back to the analysis, by the way, I didn't answer the original question that I made. It's metaphysical philosophy as well. It's philosophy and metaphysics. It's metaphysical philosophy as well. It's that aspect. Moral philosophy as well. It's pretty much, yeah, it's philosophy, but it's related, secondary related, collaterally related to metaphysics. Metaphysical philosophy would be at the end of the day. Going back to the analysis. Pretty much.
No love of separatists.
You can see all fire damage. I don't want to die. You can see that I'm paying a lot of attention to it.
I have to check my inventory.
And let's head over to the temple there. Through the forest. Pretty much, the mob stat system of this game is quite amazing if you think about it, because it's affected by the elemental system that I mentioned at the beginning. It's also affected by the defensive gameplay mechanics that we usually don't stumble upon in modern RPG games.
Easy for you.
In modern RPG games. And there you can see what I always mention, a perfect integration of the elemental system mechanics, of the
Body or none. Here.
an integration of the elemental system of the gameplay mechanics. Hey, they are landing a lot more of attacks now, huh? Let me see their attack chance. 50 and 20. Weird. They have something enhanced that is causing them to be better, be more efficient in combat. Precisely. You can see the elemental system, the accuracy system of the game, and the general defensive system, reflection, evasion, accuracy, everything. It's absolutely amazing that there's a whole... that there are two layers of complexity. That there's two layers of complexity. Several layers of complexity on top of that. We have the elemental system. So mobs, down to earth example, because otherwise the theory is useless, people. We have the elemental system. The elemental system. The player has to worry about piercing the elemental defenses of the mobs, which are pretty much the same system that the player uses. So we have the elemental system. On top of that, we have the defensive gameplay mechanics in general that Sacred 2 implements on the game. So we already have two extra layers of complexity that we would normally not stumble upon them under normal circumstances in modern games. And if you think about it, those two extra layers of complexity, the elemental system and the evasion, reflection, accuracy, all of the defensive system of the game, those two layers are perfectly integrated in such a way that the player, through that window that I just showed, that window, pay attention to the lower the lower section of it, which is a player's chance to hit, an opponent's chance to hit, and the elemental damage and armor. There, those extra layers of complexity that we have been mentioning for 39 days, you can see how they interact with enemy variety. with enemy mechanics variety. Now, that's for the stats system, but let's also take into account the physical effects that they have. The physical effects, people. In this game, there's movement impairing, there's area of effect damage, there's, as another element, there's, um, area of effect, damage impaired, movement impaired. What is that thing attacking me? He must be attacking some kind of invisible mob. Let's get to the entrance. The entrance should be more or less over here. Let me get through the through the. There we go. There we go. There we go. Here, let me save just in case the game crashes.
Your soul will strengthen me.
There we go. Perfect. Your soul will strengthen me. New dialogue line unlocked there in terms of that variety. People, it's amazing. In terms of the grandeur, we need to get to the grandeur category of the analysis eventually. And pretty much all of those extra layers of complexity, all of those extra layers of we're here, people, we're here. They deal fire damage apparently.
Room for this item. Playtime is over. I am fully stocked.
If we take into account all of those extra layers of complexity that I have been constantly mentioning, people, let me read the books. One day we need to read the books of this game. All of those extra layers of complexity, of abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics, and just how they affected the players' viewpoint of the gameplay mechanics, the damage that we deal, the accuracy, our evasion chance, and everything. It also affects the mobs as a direct reference, and pretty much that all of that has a second face of the same coin. Just like the player has accuracy, just as the player has accuracy, evasion chance, reflection, and everything. As you can see, this is my accuracy, player's chance to hit, but the opponent's chance to hit. This is the accuracy of the mobs. We need to see it from the other perspective. The damage type, almost all physical and damage, and that works in tandem with my resistances under armor. In Borderlands, as a reference, in World of Warcraft, we just have only a single interaction, which is the defense, the offensive elemental system, in place that Borderlands has, in which, for example, you have to only take care of the mobs' elemental weaknesses and the offensive elemental damages of your weapon in Borderlands. Here, it's extended to the full gear in order to convert the damage, and it's also influenced by those extra stats. In Borderlands, people, there's no evasion, reflection chance, accuracy at all. The accuracy is physical. You aim and you shoot and everything. So there's an extra batch of inherited stats. You come here to end the siege. Let me suggest something. We fight one-on-one. If you win, we will break off the siege. And we draw. If you lose, we will continue our attacks relentlessly, and no one will ever hear from or see you again. Pretty solid deal. Oh, already poison damage. What the? But it was a duel to death. Damn it. That was way too extreme for something else. As a confrontation, as a duel, goddammit. pretty much. But yeah, the elemental systems, it's incredible how they integrate within each other. How the elemental system, the elemental damage system of the game influences the mob mechanic variety, because that will in turn force the player to adapt and learn in a pretty subtle and organic way the elemental system of the game, because otherwise the player will be killed pretty fast. If you think about it, people, if I didn't have my elemental resistances, I would have been killed easily long ago. Long ago. Especially when talking about world bosses. Like some world bosses, for example, I would have never been able to beat the Ice Hydra or the or all of the dragons that we beat at the beginning of the game, without understanding the elemental system of it. Like, it's impossible. The elemental system also works in a reversed mindset. Not only that the player has to understand it, but also that the very same variety of the mobs. I remember at the beginning of the game. That the same variety forces the player to learn it. So it's a two-pronged learning process for the player from the viewpoint of the attack and defense system of our own characters, and also the mobs. Because you could see, since you helped us, you will now help the human find a new island. Alright, the blood of the Dryad, there we go. Easy, everyone happy. They didn't get killed. Let's be happy that they didn't get killed. Let's be happy about that. And precisely, the two-pronged learning system that the game implements makes the learning curve faster for the player. As I said, on average, Sacred 2 has a pretty steep learning curve. But see how enemy variety, contrary to the elemental system imposed on the player, the enemy variety and the variety of gameplay mechanics of those enemies is the very reason why that steep learning curve is balanced. Why? Because it will erect a barrier, as I said, that will make the process of learning the elemental resistances system of the game much faster on the player. Practical example, so we don't get just to the theory. So we don't get to the theory. The 3 Guardian boss fight that we did on Tuesday, people, straight up. Do you remember the Forest Guardian tree that we did on Tuesday? If you remember it, you will know that pretty much
I am all powerful.
that pretty much the tree guardian regenerated health, right? It regenerated health. So the player, the gameplay variety mechanic was that the player needed to out DPS the regeneration of that world boss. The player had to out DPS the health regeneration pace of that world boss. I would have never been able to kill that world boss. Now I see that through here I access the other side. Let's do this dungeon. We haven't done any dungeons today. Right, people? That's sad. We cannot have that. Let's do the first dungeon, because even if there aren't any quests, maybe it's the is the very reason that leads us there. It wouldn't be far from it.
Now I will erase
It wouldn't be far from the developers' minds. To think about that.
resistance.
Did I hurt you?
So pretty much the fact precisely that you had to out DPS that world boss, the Force Guardian world boss, forces the player in a pretty subtle but organic way if you think about it. This happens in London 2038, that's why I highly recommend it. With a lot of bosses, it forces the player to understand, hey, what's this? FACETTELEONWORDLBOSS. Hey, it's a world boss. Oh, it's a main world boss of the area. No, we'll leave it for the quest. Or we can do it, huh? What do you say, people? We can beat it twice. This happened to me. Let's see if I can kill it. Hey, let's see. Hey, a laser.
This crystal.
Let's see. Let's see how powerful it is. Let's see. I'll save before my escortees get killed. Let's see. We can do it. We can do it. Let's see. Hey, he didn't like that. Interesting world, boss. It deals physical, magic, and ice damage. Let's see. I bet it's the main world boss of the story. So let's see. FACETTELEON. We'll do it twice then. I can farm them. I know I'm slightly spoiling the... It has all types of resistances, huh? I know, but he doesn't have a lot. Weird. He doesn't have a lot of physical resistance. I love it. It's the opposite if you think about it, people. You start the game with a lot of physical damage and you have to build up. It takes a lot of time.
Will not obey me.
It takes a lot of time to get elemental resistances, to get elemental damage, and pretty much now we've come full circle where you don't have a lot of physical damage and the boss is resistant to precisely poison damage, which is my...
Powerful you may
No, I
be.
think the ideal fire damage. Most of my damage is fire. Yeah, it's fire with poison. So, and magic. So, I can get the advantage through dealing magic and fire damage.
Supposed to be.
Pretty much. Let me try them all. Let's use all of our repertoire of attacks. Oof, that was cool. That was quite close. Look at that. Let's not underestimate this one. Let's not underestimate this one. It's pretty good. It's pretty powerful. Okay, I think my dislodged spirit is not working because of the poison resistance. There we go. Fire damage over time. Pretty much. Pretty much.
Powerful you may be, but you are also stupid.
Pretty much. There we go.
Powerful you may be,
Ah, he killed the doppelganger.
stupid.
That was close.
Soon I will hold sway over you, creature.
What, did he kill the doppelganger again? Careful, people, this thing is quite dangerous. There's an attack, there's a specific attack that is dealing a lot of damage. Go. Oh, let's do it. FACETTELEON. So as I was mentioning regarding the the enemy spawn variety. Here we can see the perfect example. How the game decides to have an endgame world boss. I think it's damage. No. Let's go back to ice damage. I don't know if most of the damage is magic or ice. Guess we'll find out. And pretty much, I wonder, it's physical, of course, it has physical damage, but also magic and ice. And pretty much, here we go. Hey, I got to a point where there's a dissociation between my cooldowns of the same, of the Gruesome Inquisition branch of the skills request. So you can see here, there's a disparity. Because half regeneration time maybe is working separately. Good detail. Ooh, a good subtlety. We need to pay attention to that. Look at that. There's a shared cooldown, but then there's a difference. I've been able to use my single target attack earlier, as you can see there. They're independently. Oh, look at that. It's fascinating. They're independently. The cooldowns are independent. Look at that. This one, the Callous Execution got. Oh, it got to its cooldown even before when they are dissociated, when they are not part of the same combo. Look at that, people. Quite interesting. So there's a bonus, there's an advantage of having them separated. Wow, so that implies that there's also, look at that there, I could use Callous Execution but not Ruthless Mutilation. Hey, quite amazing. This is the first thing this phenomenon happens. It's an influence of the endgame gameplay mechanics. Look at that. See, I could use Callous Execution but not Ruthless Mutilation. Pretty much. There we go. My doppelganger. I may not be able to move, but I can cast my spells. Pretty solid fight that allowed me. See, for example, it's on cooldown, but Callous Execution is not. Wow, people. Incredibly interesting. Will it explode or what? I don't. It stays that way. Well, I think I might have spoiled randomly the world boss of the area. So the objective is not there. 1 in a million is there. See how close we are to Island of Many Roads. To think that people at the beginning of the series, the Island of Many Roads, we got there from the Ancaria Airlines at the beginning. Would you look at that? Well, we spoiled the world boss. We'll go up against a double version of it, I believe, due to the modding. But anyways, I think we have just found the main world boss of Dryad Island. Let me progress through the rest of the quests. We have outside interference. We have to finish Catcher. That one will be easy. We'll leave that one for last. But no, I need to get to the final area here to... no, it's not Beggars Can Be Chosen, it's the other one. The 1 in a million. Let me go back over there. So as I was mentioning, it's incredible how this two-dimensional aspect of the gameplay mechanics, the fact that in Sacred 2 we have a defensive gameplay system in place working, pretty different when compared to Diablo. The fact that we don't have to just worry about increasing our base attack damage, the min-maxing development paradigm that we talked about on Tuesday. Not only that, but it also, not only that it works on the player, and that it encourages the creation of a defensive system. If you think about it in Diablo, you just increase your base attack damage and your critical chance. That's the phenomenon that we usually denominate and define as min-maxing. That defensive system is not only affecting player mechanics as we deeply explored on Tuesday, but also enemy mechanics variety. For example, people, you could see that the elemental system of that world boss was to use physical, magic and ice attacks. 3 types. And a lot of resistances. Just like the player is affected by them, enemy mobs are also affected by them, and that combined with the other two extra layers of abstract complexity that the gameplay mechanics of Sacred 2 has, the fact that there's an elemental system in place which is used both offensively and defensively, and the fact that there's a lot of extra stats that we don't have to take into account in, as I said, I'm citing as example Borderlands, because it has an offensive elemental system but it doesn't have a defensive elemental system in place. That also works for enemy variety and enemy mechanics variety. People, you can survive a lot of encounters, but then a world boss which has a huge, for example, magic attack damage that can do a one-hit kill will be effective regardless of what you try to do, because of the implementation of those two extra layers of abstract complexity in terms of the gameplay mechanics. Pretty much. We could see the effects in one of the first world bosses when we went up against the... No, not the first bosses, mid-game bosses. The Ice Hydra. I could protect myself against a lot of attacks, but that... or the double Garganthropod that we did some streams ago. I could protect from a lot of attacks, but that nasty poison attack that it had, it was pretty powerful. And perhaps my poison defense wasn't enough, my evasion chance wasn't enough, or my health pool wasn't enough. I think my health pool wasn't enough in that case. So we can see that all of the things that we talked about on Tuesday, they are linked as associated elements to
will be victorious. I needed that.
mob gameplay mechanics variety. It's not just the elemental system variety in mobs, but also the area of attack type damage, the area of effect damages, the area of effect attacks that we usually find in mechanics like MMORPG games. For example, when in World of Warcraft there's an area that the raid group has to evade no matter what, because otherwise it's a lot of damage and the raid party will all be killed. They will all be killed, and pretty much
the Inquisition will be victorious.
pretty much in Sacred 2 we find those area of effect attacks. I remember the T-Energy Dragon, for example. The T-Energy Dragon got that nasty magic attack besides the fire damage, and he could kill me pretty fast at the beginning of the series. I don't know if you remember it, people. I don't know if you remember it. And pretty much the idea is that the game introduces MMORPG, and this is another element that I wanted to bring to the discussion, besides the integration of the elemental system and those extra stats in the game. For example, the area of effect damage, the damage over time, the MMORPG mechanics popularized by World of Warcraft that Sacred 2 perfectly implements. That's why when I did the genre classification of the game, I mentioned that precisely it was an isometric MMORPG. Like,
Your death came almost too easily.
not only because of the level design, but also enemy mob mechanics are pretty similar.
Can you feel death now? There is no such
Pretty
thing
similar
as too much practice. Your soul
when compared to actual MMORPG, to modern online MMORPGs, or for example, I don't know, World of Warcraft or whatever. there's a high degree of similarity when comparing the mob mechanics of a raid boss in World of Warcraft. And here you have area of effect attacks, damage over time attacks that you have to evade. The Ghost Energy Dragon was an example, and changing your defensive system with the relic system of the game, with the relic items of the game. And it's absolutely amazing, because we have an integration of the elemental system and the and MMORPG mechanics, and that's a quite unusual combination if you think about it. Having MMORPG mechanics, area of effect attacks, damage over time, with different types of elemental damage. It's a pretty weird combination. Borderlands did it only with Chromarax the Invincible, the last boss. And even so, it was only used offensively, it wasn't used defensively, because it doesn't have the relic system. So it's an unusual combination. Having a full-fledged 5-pronged elemental system combined with MMORPG gameplay mechanics for world bosses is quite difficult to find. Destroy Dryad Strike Force, I'm bringing that to my head. Enough is enough to try to keep trying. These are the high elves that they don't get on very well with the Dryads. They are making shrunken heads from our fallen comrades. Oh. Just imagine seeing your best friend's head dangling from a Dryad's witch belt. This is hurting our morale. I have a plan. We are just going to turn the tables on them. Yes, sir. We're going to make shrunken heads out of them. Paying with the same coin. Yes, sir. We're going to make shrunken heads out of them. Our scouts have spotted a strike force of Dryads near here. Slaughter them and bring me their heads. We're going to teach them a lesson.
You have a debt to pay.
What the? They're attacking us even here. You have a big problem. These high elves don't know how to fend off an attack. Thank you for the information. I'll leave right away. You go on. Have fun. Sebastian base. Whatever. There we go. What is the meaning of this? There we go. Another quest. The people of Eloeth San need raw iron. That's surprising. Otherwise, they don't want to deal with us. But gold is gold. We'll take care of this delivery.
Everything goes as planned.
Beggars can be chosen. There we go. Go. This one. Thank you. The Woodsman will be set to work. Good day. Perfect. Look at these people. We've explored the whole northern section of the area. We just have a shrunken heads now, which is the quest that we just received. And I believe this is the edge of the map. Could it be? Let's test the limit. Yep, pretty much. Don't see any dungeon entrance or anything like that.
You will fall like withered leaves.
You will fall like withered leaves. That one is pretty good as well. The dialogue lines are getting sophisticated, people. For Inquisitor, that's part of the grandeur category of the analysis, precisely that I was mentioning. It's absolutely incredible. How the gameplay mechanics make a perfect combination of Borderlands elemental system and the physical area of effect attacks that we would normally stumble upon in MMORPG games. If you think about it, it's a quite unusual combination, as I was mentioning. Let's do Shrunken Heads, people, because we have pretty much reached the High Elf encampment. So, yes, basically, in terms of the mob mechanics, we can see a perfect integration and influence of the defensive system that I commented on Tuesday in the framework of the stat system of the game implemented on players. It's also implemented on mobs, and that creates a high degree of variety that we should value a lot, people. We should value it a lot, because if you think about it, there's one layer of abstract mental complexity of the gameplay mechanics, right? The elemental system. We have to use it offensively and fortunately defensively here in from the perspective of the player, because we indeed can. We have to take care of reflection, chance, evasion, our total health pool, with everything that we analyzed on Tuesday. That's why I wanted to analyze these two topics consecutively, one after the other, in tandem, simultaneously. Because, just as I mentioned on Tuesday, that it's absolutely amazing that, if you think about it, people, think about the last RPG that you played. 50% of the gameplay mechanics are your defenses as a player, dealing damage and preventing damage. And if you think about it, in most modern, think about the last RPG that you played, any people, and you will see if you think about it deeply, that generally, due to the paradigm that is min-maxing, the player is allowed to deal more damage than the required amount that would create a defensive gameplay system. Pretty abstract, people, but it's extremely important. We mentioned it on Tuesday. Down-to-earth example, because otherwise the theory is useless. In Diablo, think about Diablo 3. When you are farming mobs, do you generally care about your health? No, generally there isn't a defensive system in place. The developers don't erect a barrier that would prevent the player from taking care of, that would force the player to take care of, a defensive gameplay system. When you allow that, pretty much, you just allow the player through increasing base damage to understand the whole offensive system of the game. And so the player doesn't have to care about reflection chance, we don't have to care about our total health pool, our vitality, we don't have to care about reflection, evasion, accuracy at all. See how dumbed down, how one-dimensional the system ends up being. And just like I mentioned that on Tuesday for player stats and the paradigm of min-maxing,
Nothing but a fluke.
it happens with mobs. Imagine a dissociated stat system in which there's a completely different set of stats for mobs when compared to the player. That's why I said at the beginning that the fact that this game establishes a correlation between the stat system imposed on the player and the stat system imposed on the mobs, on the enemy mechanics variety, through the elemental system and the integration of that defensive system, how much it exponentially increases the complexity of the game. See how multidimensional it becomes. That is a word that we usually don't use frequently. Multidimensional it becomes that the player has to care about elemental damage, accuracy, reflection chance, total amount of vitality, of health, regeneration times, because regeneration times indirectly influence passive buffs or defensive buffs like Paralyzing Dread, which for example decreases the attack speed of enemies. But look at that, focus on that. Player's chance to hit 53, opponent's chance to hit 27. Opponent's chance to hit and damage, see there how it changes the armor of enemies and the damage enemies deals. There's a correlation, this is fascinating, there's a correlation between the elemental damage system of the game, both offensively and defensively, for the player, between the player and the mobs. There's a direct correlation, and the effort required the abstract model required by the developers to create a balanced system in which there's a correlation is much higher. It's much higher than just having a dissociation between mob stats and player stats, because the developers have to take care of making the game challenging, because if it becomes easy, pretty much there's no challenge, there's no psychological sense of progression for the player. On one hand, I think we finished the quest. Let's turn it in. This one is part of the secret developer dungeon quest, the one that you see there that we won't do now. We'll leave it as a victory lap for the end once we achieve 100% completion of this massive game. And pretty much, I want you all to at least think about appreciating this. Is finding balance in a system, in a stat system in which there's a correlation between player imposed stats and mob imposed stats. The abstract complexity of that mental model, it's much higher on the end of the developers, for the developers, people, if you think about it. It's easier for the developer to just establish a percentage or something like that, like in Diablo, because there is no elemental system, for example, in Diablo 3, and just simply try to balance difficulty from there, because it's fixed, it's not variable. And this is related to another element that is perfectly integrated within Sacred 2's gameplay mechanics. The consistency of the difficulty curve of the game. This game, the difficulty spikes are perfectly implemented. Why? Because if we think about it, the gradual punishment reward economic system that we did an extensive analysis on Tuesday, I'm not going to repeat it again, because today I want to explore mob mechanics variety, enemy mechanics variety. If you think about it, enemy mechanics are 50% of the gameplay mechanics. We have the player dealing damage and receiving attacks, but are produced by what? Precisely by the mobs. I know this all sounds evident to the naked eye, people, but if we think about it metaphysically, in a pretty objective way, it's 50% of the gameplay. So it's extremely important to have this correlation between the stats imposed on one end and the other. A sudden word, the handsome dragon finish. Good. And I think that's the last quest of this area. Yeah, there we go. Then let me finish. Ah, look at that. We have to go through the other islands. I wonder how we get over there. Let's go back to the Ewok village. And we also have to explore this section. I bet there's another settlement here. We are close. We can have that section explored, turn in the rest of the quests, and leave everything ready for next time. We have one more there, so we have plenty of things to do back there. But well, today I managed to explore the northern section. As I was mentioning, it's important, so we'll head over to, we'll explore all of the west coast of Dryad Island. Precisely, people, precisely. It's important that there's a correlation between the mob stats and player stats. Think about it. Which is more difficult to develop? A system in which I have to find balance in two ends that share the same channel of communication, or creating two isolated elements. Like, this will be the player will be able to do this, and these the mobs.
You will fall like withered leaves.
If you think about it, it's much more difficult to establish a system in which there's a correlation between them. And then, on top of that, we have to take into account the abstract complexity that the elemental system of Sacred 2 brings to the table. As I always say, this game has a lot of abstract layers of complexity that you normally don't stumble upon them in modern RPG games. The elemental system, as I've said, in Borderlands, as a quick reference, is not even used defensively at all. In Borderlands you just loot weapons, you have your 5 types of elemental damage, but you don't have to worry about your defense at all. You just loot a shield and all enemies deal the same type of damage. There isn't a defensive elemental system in place. This game has that elemental defense system working perfectly, and then, on top of that, it has MMORPG mechanics, because it has area of effect attacks. Borderlands does that, but only for Chromarax the Invincible, for the last world boss. Then in Borderlands 2 that is fixed. There are area of effect attacks, damage over time, different effects on the player that are inherited from MMORPGs. So, if you think about it, it brings... Oh, they killed my doppelganger! Careful, 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 careful. See, this is what I meant when I said perfect difficulty. The learning curve, even if I have amazing perfect gear and everything, the difficulty curve of the game organically introduces that, and that is a domino effect. It has a psychological impact on the player, precisely. Most game reviews, at the end of the day, judge a game, as we said on Tuesday, they judge a game according, directly related, besides being what I always say, relativist arguments, and what I always mention, that everything will be affected by the fact, by our stance. If we take a relativist stance and we say that, as I always mention, people, this is a gaming mouse and not a chair, because of the sum of our mental perceptions, or if it's a mouse, due to the fact that it's a specific combination of molecules and particles that's simply so specific that could never be a chair. There's a dissociation in the realist stance, in which metaphysical reality is dissociated from my mental perception. It doesn't matter if I think it's a chair or not. It's a specific combination of particles that has a long objective metaphysical composition that subconsciously in the human brain we've been in contact, for example, with an animal that for millions of years has the shape of this electronic device. We have been in contact with real mouses, with a real animal, and metaphysically that can tell you that this entity, this electronic device, why is it a mouse? Why is it correct to refer to it as a mouse? Because it's a combination of particles that subconsciously the human race has been in contact with for millions of years. It doesn't matter my mental perception. If I think it's a chair, if I tell you it's a chair, it is. That's why I say always that it's metaphysically objective to call it a mouse, because of its combination of molecules and particles, not because of my mental perception of it. And in terms of game reviews, you'll see how this completely changes it. If I tell you that this is generally what happens over at IGN or whatever, or professional gaming reviews, or everything, your favorite gaming review source that you could think about, generally they tell you the game was addictive for me, so it's good for you. There, I am unconsciously, this is a subconscious process, people. People don't think about it generally, because naturally it's a subconscious process. Because generally, the person will say that is his mental perception is absolutely fascinating. If reality, the quality of the game in this case, between parentheses, if the quality of a game is a matter of mental perception, then the person will tell you, it was addictive for me. Then I think it'll be addictive for you. When they say addictive, they are referring to the subjective psychological impact that the sense of progression had on that person's mind. But they just call it addictive. However, that psychological impact happens for a reason, for an objective reason, not because of the player's mental perception. It happens because the sense of progression was properly implemented, because the gameplay mechanics respond to inherited traits that generate that psychological sense of progression, and as a direct consequence, that addiction. See, that is, from the perspective of realism, an precisely objective, and for me, it's not a perspective, and in my case, it's not a perspective, because I'm giving you a logical reason as to why. I'm giving you a logical reason as to why that psychological sense of progression exists, and there are impulses, there are things in the game that entice that psychological process happening. The problem is that it's a subconscious process that game reviewers usually don't pay attention to. And it's quite interesting. But I could reach a logical reason. That's because I analyze them from objectiveness, from metaphysical objectiveness. It's just like I told you that it would be objectively incorrect to call this a chair, even if we all agree to do so. There will always be a mental perception out of two mental perceptions, out of saying that this is a gaming mouse and saying this is a chair, or even an electronic device, so you have a much more close example. If I say this is a gaming mouse or an electronic device, describing it as a mouse has a subconscious implication to shape with that animal that we have been in contact with for millions of years, that our mind subconsciously associates with. See how interesting it is. So it's more precise to call this a gaming mouse rather than a chair, of course, or an electronic device, out of two mental perceptions, calling it a chair or calling it a mouse, or calling it a mouse and an electronic device, even by 1%, even by a slight detail between two mental perceptions, there will always be one out of two of them, or more, that is closer in its description to metaphysical reality, people. This is the base of metaphysical realism that we were debating with Ike, precisely. But if you can see it, at least I'm giving you a logical correlation between reality and my mental perception. If I analyzed games, as they are usually analyzed, I would tell you, I think the game is addictive. I think my mental perception. But that does not mean that it objectively reflects that. But when I tell you that there are elements that I have found through logic, through empirical evidence, through testing the game, through playing it for 39 days and doing a 100% completion of it, I can tell you that there are objective elements that favor the creation of that psychological sense of progression on the player and generating that addictiveness. See how they are all objective reasons. Psychological sense of progression creates the addictiveness. It's not a matter if I think it does or not. It does. If you ask a lot of people, they will tell you that, for example, World of Warcraft is addictive, Diablo is addictive, but there are objective reasons that they are difficult to pinpoint from the perspective of a relativist analysis, because relativism will reject the possibility of reaching an objective conclusion, and everything will be a mere matter of opinion. And the second everything is a mere matter of opinion, you are actually assigning the same metaphysical value to all mental perceptions. It's the same saying it's a chair, that is a chair, than saying that it's a gaming mouse. It doesn't value accuracy in objective description, because objectiveness doesn't exist. Quite interesting, people. Quite interesting if you think about it. So, going back to enemy mechanics and everything, I can tell you that, well, besides the previous 38 days that I've been analyzing the game, because of several reasons, like that the fact that the extension of the level design retains the high quality of a game with a much smaller level design, so it retains the quality of detail of a full-fledged MMORPG and everything, of a full-fledged RPG, with the extension of the terrain of an MMORPG, and that's pretty unusual. For example, that's a fact. And because if we objectively compare Sacred 2 to other isometric action RPG games, you'll find that in the comparison there are objective differences. In Diablo 2, there are only 6 chapters, for example, and it's a majestic game that set the standard for the genre, and I have only praise for it. But for example, when I analyze the complexity of the level design, for example, it's undeniable that objectively, Sacred 2's level design has a higher degree of complexity. I've spent 39 days. See how twisted the passages are. See the high degree of density. It has 700 quests. In Diablo, we only have 24 or something like that. I think, according to, if you have the expansion, it will be a bit more. But they were what? They were 6 per chapter, and there were 4 or 5 chapters. I don't recall. I think with the expansion, it's 5. The sheer difference in quest variety alone objectively influences the level design. It's not a matter of if I tell you that Diablo, if I tell you that, no, but I like Diablo 2 more. If I like Diablo 2 more, yeah, you can like Diablo 2 more as a game perfectly. I do love Diablo 2 more than anything. Who doesn't? It's the father of all RPGs. But that doesn't prevent me from addressing the metaphysical objective fact that the level design in Sacred 2 has a higher degree of complexity. It doesn't prevent me from doing so because I can dissociate my mental perception that I like Diablo 2 because maybe I have a lot of amazing memories with it or whatever, from the objective fact that Diablo 2, that Sacred 2, that the complexity of the terrain has a higher degree of quality. Because you don't have this massive extension with the high amount of detail in Diablo 2. That's objective and I can recognize it. Recognizing that would be impossible from a relativist perspective. Because I would tell ya, yeah, but I like Diablo 2 more. And that has the same value, it has the same metaphysical value in its description as saying that I like Sacred 2 more. That the level design is higher. See that there's an old saying that says that it's not a matter of your opinion and mine, it's a matter of together reaching metaphysical reality through breaching the limits of each of our individual mental perceptions. Together, when mental perceptions break this barrier, they can reach objective conclusions. And the same goes for the level design and all aspects that we've been analyzing, people. As I said, the second you assign the same metaphysical value to two mental perceptions, saying this is a mouse or an electronic device, you are ignoring metaphysical reality. Why? Because it's more out of two mental perceptions. There will always be one that even by 1%, even by 0.0000001%, even a slight detail will be closer in its description, more accurate in its description to metaphysical reality. The opinion, the mental perception, is closer to metaphysical reality if I say this is a gaming mouse than an electronic device, because there are several electronic devices and not all of them have the shape that subconsciously we've been in contact with the real animal and etc. And I bet there are many more reasons that I cannot see. But there you have a perfect example. Going back to mob variety and mechanics, it's amazing that Sacred 2 has those two layers of complexity, those two abstract layers of complexity. MMORPG mechanics with area of effect attacks, damage over time, and the elemental and a much more complex elemental system than what we would stumble upon if we analyzed. I think we're done here. We explored everything. Let's go back to the Ewok village. I'm calling the Ewok village. It's the Dryad village, people. It's just that the Ewoks, it has a lot of Star Wars references, this game. We also have our lightsabers here, you can see them. You even have sounds. And pretty much. Going back to enemy mechanics variety. An elemental system, the elemental system of Borderlands, combined with the physical gameplay mechanics of MMORPG games, area of effect attacks, damage over time, etc., integrates the enemy mechanics variety aspect of the enemy variety. And if on top of that we also add something that we mentioned on Tuesday, that the game features a defensive system in which the player is encouraged to develop a defensive set of stats And the same applies to mobs. If we take all of that into account, the end result is that the mental model of the abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics, it's exponentially higher. Think about Diablo 3, think about Skyrim, think about the last RPG that you played. Tell me, people, or anyone watching this as a YouTube or a Twitch pod, did you have to worry at all about your evasion chance, your total amount of hit points, your reflection chance, your defenses at all? Or did you just min-maxed as a paradigm in the framework of the stat system of the game? There's a high percentage of chances, just like in Diablo 3, that you simply had to min-max your character to reach combat efficiency. You just increased your base attack damage, and probably we just needed to invest points on a secondary related stat to base attack damage, like critical chance or things like that, like proccing, what we normally call proccing effects, like fire, like critical chance, like I don't know, chance to deal double damage. I don't know. In Borderlands, for example, there's a stat that there are some parts of the skill tree that involve shooting 2 bullets with only one in only one shot and dealing double damage effectively, for example. There are thousands of variations according to the specific implementation of the case. But if we take into account that Sacred 2 implements a defensive system, if you think about the last RPG that you played, you probably didn't need to care about defensive stats. You only cared about increasing your base attack damage and critical chance and those stats, as I've said. All things that complement that min-maxing philosophy. Hey, it wasn't here. Outside interference, it wasn't here. I had to go to the other way. The other way around. The other way around. You didn't have to worry about those stats. You didn't have to worry at all about those stats. And that creates a one-dimensional gameplay system. The player doesn't need to care about stats at all. Defensive stats, sorry, at all. It's all offensive. Increase your base attack damage, and the amount of time in which you kill a mob will be faster than the amount of time required to implement a defensive system that plays a role in that game. If you see any gameplay of Diablo 3, look it up, you will see that the player is constantly killing thousands of mobs with a lot of area of effect attacks, and basically defense is non-existent, effectively eliminating 50% of the gameplay mechanics from the game. That's what we analyzed in depth on Tuesday. What happens with mobs with the perspective of enemy variety? Okay, it's not through here. Yeah, it is. Remember that we need to... That's why I left this for the end, people, because basically this Ewok village has a lot of crazy, twisted paths that you have to go up and down, and there's a lot of transitions. See why I left it for the end, after killing everything in the northern section of the island. Pretty much, the end result that we get, if you see any modern isometric action RPG, you see that it's a player jumping from one point to the other or casting spells, killing a lot of mobs without ever caring about defense for a single second. Like, altogether. Hey, it's already been 4 hours, damn it. Damn it, people. And the same goes for mobs. Like, if you think about it, in this game, the developers had to implement... Hey, where are we?
Almost there now.
Yeah, almost there now, but it's down there or something like that. Well, it's down there or something like that. I guess it will be way too boring for you people to see me turning in all of the quests. So we'll leave it here. It's already been 4 hours. I will manage my inventory for next time. And deep special thanks to Ike 9000 for dropping by. Thank you, Ike, for accompanying me in this 39th day of review of Sacred 2. And deep thanks for yeah, for accompanying me these 39 days, and not being shy and chatting about the Roman Empire and all those amazing things. People, as you can see, whenever you like, anyone, people, we can discuss these topics. You have my particular point of view, and it's absolutely amazing, and I deeply
Remember,
appreciate it
the bigger the lie.
that I can do this with, that I can talk about these topics with all of you at a highly intellectual level. It's satisfying to discuss those topics at this level. Uh, truly satisfying. Because otherwise, this would never happen in a normal uh, stream, and I think that's sad because it adds a lot of quality and makes the discussion rich at all. And as I said, don't be afraid to. Now I can see that don't be afraid to tell me your opinion at all. Ever anyone watching this? So that was an amazing stream, people. I deeply appreciate your all of your company. Special thanks to Ike and the rest of Scarlet Dragoon, Picard, and of course all of you guys. Moigat from Spain, precisely Junior Tech, all of you guys, Crowbar, of course, all of you. I remember all of you, and deeply appreciate your every single second that you spend um, watching my analysis and at least listening to my crazy uh, metaphysical review of the games. Special thanks, as I've said, to Discord members. Um, as I said, I need to check now. Pixel generator. I will check now after I finish the stream. Which is your user here over at Twitch or over at YouTube? Um, I'll check it out to see. I'll check it out. Um, and thanks to all followers of the Twitch channel from the bottom of my heart. And as a conclusion for today, as I said, it's incredible how Secret 2 integrates a lot of mob variety and mechanics variety. Not only the type of enemies that we go up against, but how the mechanics are implemented. As you can see, it's much deeper, people. If you think about it, it's not just enemy variety that would normally get in Diablo, Titan Quest, etc., but also the variety in mechanics of those world bosses, how the world bosses work, how the normal mobs work, and in Sacred 2 we have an insane amount of variety, an absolutely insane amount of variety, both in mobs, but also in their mechanics, and that's what I wanted to highlight today, and how they also integrate with everything that we mentioned on Tuesday. So they all perfectly integrate because precisely um, there's a correlation between the imposed stat system on the player and the mobs, that they are not dissociated. The lack of that dissociation is a highly positive element that we should always value, because otherwise the complexity of the gameplay mechanics, creating a cohesive system, is absolutely, it loses a lot of exponential difficulty for the developer, and it takes much more time to create a cohesive system in which the mobs are also benefited from all of the elements that we mentioned on Tuesday. The elemental system, the extra complexity of the elemental system, both offensively and defensively, and also you have the extra of the MMORPG implemented mechanics like area of effect. Like I almost forgot about it, about dispelling buffs like the Ice Hydra. Pretty good twist there. So if you think about all of them, you will find a lot of correlations that enhance, which basically enhance the abstract complexity of the mob mechanics, not just of the player mechanics. So amazing, absolutely amazing, and layers and those extra layers of complexity are always welcome because they enhance replayability. Replayability enhances that psychological sense of progression, and that enhances addictiveness, which is usually the subjective term that reviewers use to describe a good game. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Deep thanks to Ike. Deep thanks to all of you guys, Scaradagoon, Pekaren, all of you. I know that we have all different time zones and we cannot be all at the same time. So, Crowbar, you as well. All of you, deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate it. Also, extra thanks to, well, Pekaren for also subscribing over at YouTube that I mentioned on Tuesday, and Yoshibo. Yoshibo for being the 47th YouTube subscriber. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. See you all on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. Have a great, great weekend. And see you all on Tuesday. See you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend of video games or whatever. Enjoy your life. And see you all on Tuesday. Bye bye. We'll continue the analysis on Tuesday. And remember, we still have to do the final analysis. Final analysis of the game. The the Ultimate PS Vita Modded Showcase. If Shantae's Risky's Revolution is released, we'll do Ultimate 3DS Showcase. And then we have the next game for analysis. We have plenty of underrated games that certainly deserve much more praise. So sad. They need to be uncovered and shown to the world by someone, and that is us people. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to see you all on Tuesday. Appreciate you all very, very